Today we're taking a big train trip that goes from Switzerland through Italy, through Croatia, Slovenia, back to Italy, and then back to Zurich, Switzerland. Zurich's a great starting point for me because I come from Boston generally, and I can get a nonstop from Boston to Zurich, which is big. The other convenience provided by Zurich is that the train comes right to the airport. I wanted to get right out of Zurich because I'm not a big fan, into a town that was about the right distance time-wise away from Zurich. And Montreux is about 2.5 hours by train, and that seemed perfect, and it in fact was. Beautiful little town located on Lake Geneva. Bear in mind during the course of these videos that the images you see are not necessarily what I'm talking about. The images are pretty self-explanatory generally, so a lot of times I'll just be telling stories while travel images roll in the background. As usual, I did not have any accommodation booked, but as usual was able to find a cool place with a real nice view out over the lake. I hit the restaurant and got a nice meal and had a couple of big old bottles of beer and went back to the room and enjoyed some weird TV. I think it was Italian TV, and I'd show you the images, but they probably wouldn't be acceptable. Just suffice it to say that TV is a lot different in Italy. I have a feeling the water in the lakes in Switzerland tends to be different than the water in the lakes in New England because the color is different. Italy's great, but their trains can be kind of grubby compared to the Swiss trains. For example, the little cloth in the headrest area that protects the seat from people's grubby hair was kind of soiled on the Italian trains. Trains in Switzerland, as you might expect, they are on time and they are immaculate and seem generally new. Trains are much more important in Europe, therefore the stations are much bigger, there are more trains, nicer service, nicer amenities. Look at how big this station is. You have a lot of options when it comes to train passes, but you first need to decide if a pass is worth it for you. If you're going to be traveling on a train a lot, going from country to country, a pass might be a good idea. You can get a whole Europe pass, but you also can get a flexi pass, which will give you maybe 3 contiguous countries. And it may give you 5 days of travel that you have to use up within a month. There are all sorts of options. The thing to do is price out what it would cost you point to go where you plan to go versus the cost of the pass. If you don't know where you want to go, then a pass might be great because it's really flexible. And a note, if you do get a pass, make sure that you validate the pass on the first day of travel or before the first day of travel begins. Because if they catch you with an unvalidated pass, they'll think you're trying to get free travel. And make sure to fill in the date for each day you use it. Again, if you forget to fill in the date, they'll think you're trying to get a free day of travel, and they could take your pass and worse. The road to Slovenia goes through Venice, or at least it did for me. And Venice is hot and crowded in the summer, not as pleasant as it is in the winter, but what am I going to do? Not go there? So it was fine, but I did not stay long. Just passed through. It is undeniable that even with the crowds and all, it is so beautiful, it's painful. It really is painfully beautiful. The water level is rising in Venice, enough to cause real problems. And there are lots of days during the year where they have to put up scaffolding and walkways in St. Mark's Square because it's covered in water. Food is great in Venice, obviously. You do not need to seek out the best restaurant in town. Even a mediocre restaurant is going to be pretty great, and it's going to have a wonderful atmosphere. The next country I passed through on the way to Slovenia would be Croatia, and I stopped in the town of Opatija. Opatija means abbey, and the town is in fact named after an abbey. Most of the abbey is gone, but the church that was the centerpiece of the abbey still stands, over 500 years old. The town has a walk of fame, and a lot of the names in the walk of fame are names you wouldn't know, but there's one you certainly would know, Nikola Tesla. If you like old hotels, you might want to check out the Hotel Kvarner. Built in 1884, they say it's the first hotel on the Adriatic coast. They have a real nice promenade, which you may want to enjoy. The architecture seems very Venetian. There's a reason for that, because it is. Venetians who had a lot of money wanted a second place, and they built it, in many cases, in Opatija. If you're a rich Venetian, you have money for more than one place, and this was just about the right distance and very nice, so it's a natural place for them to build their second home. If you don't care a lot about museums and nightlife, etc., then Opatija might be for you. If you just want to relax, chill, maybe go to the casino, you might want to check it out. Maybe good for 1 night, 2 nights tops. Here you see a border train station. I have memories of this station. The train stopped there for a long time, and they took my passport, and they had everybody's passport for so long. I started getting worried, unnecessarily so, as it turns out. This is Ljubljana, capital of Slovenia. It's a fairy tale little capital. Beautifully painted buildings in bright colors like pink and orange. And your travel dollar will definitely go further in Ljubljana than it will in Paris or London. Now, check out these folks. I got to know them pretty well over the course of an afternoon and an evening. There's a story. I was on the train from Ljubljana, headed up to Lake Bled, and I met up with the guy in the kilt. We were watching the countryside go by with the train window down. He said, "Don't go all the way up to X town and down. Get off at Y town with me. We'll hitchhike across to Lake Bled, which you see here. It's a shortcut." I said, okay. We did, and we got picked up right away from a middle-aged woman and her mother. Immediately picked up and taken right to Lake Bled, where we met that third guy you saw. They were wild. The woman was particularly wild. The guy was kind of shady, as he had some inconsistencies in his background story, but whatever. I let it go. And they took me to a recommended restaurant run by a family, maybe just a woman. And the food was great, simple, rustic, local. And she made her own slivovitz. And she had all kinds of it, all different flavors. It seems like she'd make slivovitz out of anything. Junipers, pine needles, stuff she found around the house. And here's where I learned a lesson the hard way. A, don't drink too much of that stuff. But B, if somebody brings you something to the table that you did not ask for, it's not free. If you consume it, you pay for it. And she was bringing these slivovitzes, and I was drinking them, and these two people were drinking them, and I ended up paying the bill for all three. There happened to be an apartment upstairs. I stayed there. Here it is. So I woke up with a pretty thunderous headache and a bill that was larger than I expected, but still not that bad at all. And I didn't mind. I don't mind paying for them. They helped me out. So I headed back to Switzerland by way of Italy and did go through Bern, Switzerland, which is pretty remarkable in its appearance, as you can see. It's also where Einstein took up a job in a patent office, and I think that clock right there was visible from his office. After that, headed back to Zurich by way of Italy, and there you go. Once again, Zurich. If I were you, I wouldn't plan to spend any time there. It's expensive and not that great. The best thing in Zurich was this duck with a gold head. If you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing, click on the bell to get notified of future posts, and travel lightly.